welcome in to Texans Today. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, the perfect offseason plan for your Houston Texans to win the AFC South in 2024. They were the AFC South winners this season. Can they repeat as AFC South champs next season? I'll tell you what I think they can do in the offseason to make that a possibility. But first, talking about the AFC South, who do you think is the Texans' biggest threat going into next season? You think it's the Jags, type J, Colts, type C, Titans, type T? I mean, a lot of people probably typing in their J's. I think I might be leaning towards C for the Colts. They have Anthony Richardson, who's still somewhat of an unknown, but played really well at the beginning of the season. I like what they have with a lot of these young roster pieces that the Colts have been able to acquire and get throughout the past couple of years. I really like their head coach. I think it might be C, but this is going to be the pinned comment on today's video. So let me know what you think. Who is the biggest threat for the Texans in the AFC South going into next season? Now getting into my perfect offseason plan for your Houston Texans. Number one has to be this. You got to figure out the coaching staff, and most notably, who's going to be calling plays on the offensive side of the ball, because Bobby Slowik, the Texans OC, and QB coach Jerrod Johnson, both garnering a ton of interest. Bobby Slowik, he's gotten 5 interviews so far between the Falcons, Seahawks, Commanders, Panthers, and Titans. And Jerrod Johnson, he's gotten a couple OC interviews between the Saints and the Browns. Both of these guys, very crucial for C.J. Stroud's development. So my first step in the perfect offseason plan is you got to keep one of them. If Bobby Slowik leaves, you keep Jerrod Johnson as your OC. If Jerrod Johnson leaves to be an OC somewhere, Bobby Slowik, you're really hoping that he stays and he doesn't get a head coaching job. If both leave, sneaky name that I really think the Texans should consider, bringing somebody back to H-Town, somebody who DeMeco Ryans is very familiar with, Klint Kubiak from the San Francisco 49ers. If both these guys leave, my plan C would be Klint Kubiak, but you're really hoping either Bobby Slowik or Jerrod Johnson can stay in H-Town. Now, no matter who gets the OC job, no matter what happens, I'm going to keep you updated throughout the entire offseason with the latest Texans news and rumors through NFL free agency, the 2024 NFL draft, coaching changes, just anything going on around your Houston Texans, injury news, what's going on with C.J. Stroud, the guys who are returning. I'll let you know everything you need to know. So go hit that sub button, and here's my promise to you. Hit the sub button and give me 1 week. If you don't like the channel, you can unsubscribe, but give me 1 week to earn your subscription, which is 100% free. And like I said, if you don't like it, you can cancel it in a week. But hey, what do you have to lose to join the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube? Next up, you got to re-sign your key players. Before you look at the free agency, before you look at the draft, you really got to look inward. And these are my 5 guys, if I'm the Houston Texans, that I'm really trying to re-sign at the start of free agency. Now, Jonathan Greenard, he had a breakout year for the Houston Texans at defensive end, led the team in sacks, really liked his development under head coach DeMeco Ryans. So if the Texans can keep Jonathan Greenard, that'd be huge, pairing him, a young pass rusher, with another young pass rusher in Will Anderson Jr. Sheldon Rankins, the defensive tackle, he was your best DT this year. And now, I don't think he should be your best DT moving forward, but in terms of re-signing guys, I really like the move of keeping Sheldon Rankins, as well as Dalton Schultz. He was a great security blanket for C.J. Stroud throughout the year. Now, you can obviously go ahead and draft a tight end or maybe get another one in free agency, but I like what Dalton Schultz brings to this team, the leadership, the poise that he brings to this offense. Bringing back Dalton Schultz would be a big one for me, as well as Blake Cashman. Very surprising, he led the team in tackles this year, also really good in coverage. I would try to bring back Blake Cashman as well as Steven Nelson, who is your starting corner on the opposite of Derek Stingley Jr. If you could bring back Steven Nelson, that would be really big for this team. But with the cornerbacks that are hitting free agency, Steven Nelson might be in for a big payday. Now, here are my honorable mentions, guys that I think the Texans should also consider bringing back. Obviously, Kaimi Fairbairn, I'd really like to bring him back, even though he missed that field goal in the Baltimore Ravens game and the extra point in the Colts game in Week 18. I still think he's a really good kicker. And in a league where, as we saw in the divisional round, multiple games decided by kickers. Tyler Bass, wide right for the Bills. Once again, sorry to anybody who has Bills fans who are family members or friends. I'm wide right. I mean, just heartbreaking for them. I mean, if you have a good kicker, you can definitely go further in the playoffs and in this league. Another guy who I want the Texans to look at is Devin Singletary, the running back. Led the team in rushing this year. Very sneaky good signing by the Texans this past offseason. Could he possibly sign another 1 or 2 year deal? As well as Charlie Heck. He was injured for most of the year, but as we've seen with this Texans offensive line, these guys could drop like flies, and the Texans offensive line had injuries across the board throughout the entire season. So signing somebody like Charlie Heck, who can be your swing tackle, a big get for the Texans if they can get him to re-sign, as well as late addition to the squad, Desmond King. They signed him off the Steelers practice squad after they let him go in the preseason, and he ended up making a big difference down the stretch for the Texans. I'd really like to see Desmond King back as your nickel corner next season. Now, I gave you 9 names. I gave you who I thought the Texans should really re-sign. But I want you to give me one name. Who do the Texans need to re-sign? Let me know down in the comment section who you think the Texans absolutely need to re-sign this offseason. He was the first name on my list, and I'm really going with him. Jonathan Greenard. I mean, led the team in sacks, is a young pass rusher in a league where pass rushers really determine how well your defense can play against the pass. I really think you bring back Jonathan Greenard as long as it's not breaking the bank, absolutely. Remind you, the Texans have the second most cap space entering the 2024 NFL offseason with just over $74 million right now before they do some maneuvers and cuts and restructures and whatnot. So they definitely have some money to spend. I would really like for them to keep the duo of Jonathan Greenard and Will Anderson because Anderson's only getting better. Greenard's only getting better. What can they be next year? What can they be 2 years from now? I really think it could be a dangerous pass rush duo for years to come. Next up, after you re-sign your own guys, then you go out in free agency, and I think you got to make a splash. Like I said, second most cap space in the NFL entering free agency. These are my 5 guys. If you're really looking to say, hey, we're trying to win a Super Bowl in H-Town. We're trying to get there. We're trying to take the next step. We're trying to compete with the Kansas Cities, the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens of the AFC. These are the 5 guys that I would really like for you to go out and make that splash signing. First up, Mike Evans from Galveston, played college ball at A&M. I really, really like what the wide receiver from Tampa Bay could offer this Texans team. A veteran presence and still a great wide receiver. I mean, the guy doesn't get under 1,000-yard receiving yards in a single season. It just never happens. So bringing in Mike Evans would be a huge get for C.J. Stroud, another weapon to go alongside Nico Collins and Tank Dell. Now, somebody who the Texans should have never let walk in the first place, DJ Reader, the defensive tackle from Cincinnati. Now, note on this, you could maybe get him at a cheaper contract. Got hurt towards the end of the year for the Cincinnati Bengals. Ended the year on their IR. So DJ Reader, could he be somebody who the Texans could sign on a little bit of a cheaper contract coming off an injury? I would really like that to bolster your defensive tackle room. Like I said, you re-signed Sheldon Rankins, but if you could add another guy, maybe 2 or 3 guys this offseason, I really think the defensive tackle room needs some help for this Houston Texans team. Like I said earlier, Steven Nelson would be a good get, but if you could get L'Jarius Sneed, a legit top corner in this league to pair on the other side of Derek Stingley, that would be absolutely huge for this Texans defense. Now you're saying, hey, Jeremy, what if the Chiefs decide, L'Jarius Sneed's a great corner. What if we franchise tag him? The thing is, they also have another guy who's up for a contract in Chris Jones. And I think they keep Chris Jones over L'Jarius Sneed. They can only franchise tag one of them, and with their cap situation, I don't know if they can keep both. If the Texans are going to break the bank for somebody, a young guy, I would like it to be Sneed, the corner from Kansas City. And this next name, I know a couple of y'all maybe getting a little bit excited about this. A ton of running backs in free agency available for the Houston Texans this offseason. Saquon Barkley, I think, would be a very, very tantalizing player to snag in free agency. I mean, has had a ton of injury issues with the New York Giants, but still, when healthy, is absolutely electric. Will the Giants bring him back for another season? I don't know, but if the Texans really want to spend some money, one of the things DeMeco Ryans said after that Ravens loss is this running game needs to improve next season. What better way to improve it than getting an amazing running back like Saquon Barkley, and to beef up that interior of the offensive line, maybe getting Connor Williams from the Miami Dolphins. He played center this past year. You can use him at center, maybe use him at guard, but I really like the idea of adding more beef up front. You really need to build the trenches if you're the Houston Texans. Connor Williams would be another splash signing that I think the Texans could make this offseason that would really improve their chances of getting to the AFC Championship game. And my last step in the perfect offseason plan is you got to knock out the draft again. They did a fantastic job this past year. They got guys like Will Anderson Jr., who might be the Defensive Rookie of the Year. C.J. Stroud, who might be the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Tank Dell as well. They had a loaded draft class this past year. So if you can add on to that in this year's draft, I think that would be a huge plus for this team moving forward. And the top needs, as I see it, for the Houston Texans going into this offseason, defensive line, offensive line depth, your secondary, running back, wide receiver. Those are the top 5 needs, in my opinion, for the Texans. I was wavering on linebacker here and there, but I really like Christian Harris. Henry To'oTo'o, I think, can develop into a good linebacker as well, and I'm hoping that you re-sign Blake Cashman. So I think you're good at the linebacker spot. These are my top 5 needs for the Houston Texans going into the draft. If they can nail a couple of these spots in the draft, this Texans team can be dangerous going into next year. Now, that's all I have for you on today's show, but before I get to the very end, I just want to thank each and every one of you who made it to this point in the video. You, yes, you, I'm looking at you. You are a real one. So if you made it to the end of the video, go down there and spam those H's in the comments section. Let me know who the real ones are so I can give you a shout out in the comments. And as always, follow me on Twitter at Jeremy Chuggs for more Texans news and rumors, the dankest memes on the internet, right here at Jeremy Chuggs. And as always, subscribe to the channel. We are the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube. We're trying to get to 10K. Help me get there. Help me right now. Please go down and hit that sub button or go to youtube.com/TexansTV for more Texans news and rumors.